For beginners especially, it tends to want to go flying off the wheel sometimes. So to avoid that, I dip my hands just up to the wrist in water, get my surface with a thin layer, and I can take my left hand and just make sure it's not going to go anywhere from the top, and I can take my right hand and a sponge and adhere that to the surface, and that makes it a lot less likely to go flying off, right? So when we do centering, there's a few different methods, but I'm going to show you what I call the butterfly and karate chop. The butterfly feels weird at first. You cross your thumbs like this. So put your lumps down somewhere for a second. Yeah, just put it on the cart over there. Right? Cross your thumbs like this. And here's the tricky part. Try to then get these nice fat parts of your thumbs to touch each other. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel like your wrists are going to be stretching this weird little tendon here that doesn't feel normal. Yeah. So cross the thumbs, right? The reason we cross the thumbs is so they work together as a team. And we're going to be doing two types of pressure moves. We're going to be moving the clay down and in, using this nice fat part of the thumbs here. The fingers just sort of wrap loosely around the pot. They're not doing the work here. Your fingers are small. This part's nice and powerful.
Making sure you don't.
We then have another part. See this nice karate chop part here? We're gonna then move the clay down in center with with the butterfly. Then we're gonna move it up in center with the karate chop. So I do that like this. Dip your hands in water, make sure you have a nice even coat. We want the wheel going medium to medium high. I can take my foot off the pedal. I do my butterfly, and I brace against my legs. And I kind of lean down and in. See how it makes the top better, but then the sides are all messy? Then I take my karate chop, that's here and here. Not the fingers are sort of extra. And instead of approaching its side like this, I kind of torque my body. Makes it easier for me to lift up. See how I've got a dimple? Don't close in a dimple. Once you see it start to occur, stop. And I alternate those movements, bracing against my legs. When I do the butterfly down, I'm also kind of curling my hands around the bottom so it doesn't just flatten out too much. The clay is going to tell you what you're doing. If it becomes a pancake, you've gone and pressed too far down, right? If it becomes a space needle, you press too far in. But you can alternate. You can, you don't want to pancake it too much, but you can squash it a little, bring it up, right? So I alternate those movements. Karate chop it up. Butterfly down. See how it's getting a little bit less crazy, a little bit less wonky as I go? Yeah.
What advantage versus this drawing up do you have?
Leverage. When I'm if I'm coming in from the sides, I have to use the power of my arms to squeeze in with pure muscle. If I come in from this direction, I can lean back with a straight body, and my body weight does the work. Yes, that's it, with the lean. Not like this, like that. Like this. It doesn't matter as much for a small piece like this, but if you're doing a giant piece, lots of poundage.
Yes.
Some people do what's called blade centering. That's when they have one hand is supporting the clay, and the other hand, so one does the side and one does the top. You can do that too if you want. If you do it too, make sure your hands are touching. Don't have them separate, have them touching. I notice when I center, instead of I use my leg to brace on this side. On this side, I actually kind of wedge my elbow into my hip bone, like this. Now you can tell it's centered because it looks like there's no motion. If you want to test it, you can send one of your little tools water skiing over it. Nice smooth ride, right? You see it's always a little funky here at the bottom. Do you see how it looks like it's moving there and it's not moving as much there? That is because the wheel is flat and my hand is curved. So I can take this tool, my 90-degree angle, and just clean it up just a little. Put all my gunk back in the bucket, we recycle that later. So now that it's centered and I've got a nice sort of hockey puck shape, I'm going to take one thumb, doesn't matter left or right, put the other thumb right on top of its thumbnail to add a little pressure to it, while my hands sort of loosely wrap around it, and I'm going to find the center where nothing is moving. And I'm going to gently sink my thumbs down until I get not all the way to the bottom, because unless we're making a bottomless form with no bottom, until we have just, maybe a quarter inch, half an inch to a quarter inch. So after it's open,
See, when I do that,
Yeah.
I get to this point, it already is wonky, so I'm not doing it
so
properly when I'm putting two fingers in.
sometimes it's the speed. Try opening more slowly, because opening is just like a pull. If you do it too fast, you're going to make like a spiral, right? After I open, we're doing a cylinder here, I want to widen. So I dip my fingers in water, I get both thumbs in there, and what I'm doing is gently moving my thumbs towards my fingers, right? I want to do it on a flat plane, not like up or down, but a flat plane.
Are you putting any pressure on the outside of your hand as you're doing that?
Just enough pressure to make sure it doesn't go wild, but no actual pushing. More
Just control.
support and control than pressure, right? Then, because it's going to be hard for me to reach the bottom later, I flatten the bottom even more. And notice that now it has a definite delineation, a definite mark between floor, wall. When we're doing a bowl, we want a continuous curve. We don't want to have like a noticeable floor, noticeable wall. Since we're doing cylinders, we want a flat floor, tall wall, right? Now,
For your mugs, is that about the same?
this
width
is
you
about
would
how much,
start your mug,
yeah,
or you'd
this
be
is,
out a little more?
this is the footprint,
Yeah.
and the footprint, the inside mark of the footprint is going to be the base of my mug. So for a mug, for a mug to have it, that's how far, like if I were going to do a large utensil holder, I would use twice as much clay, and I would draw the footprint out to like here.
But for like your Stein
For a
test
regular,
mugs,
this is
would
like a
that be about-
16 to 18 ounce mug. So my next thing is the first pull. The first pull is a little bit different. The first pull, first of all, now everything changes because I'm doing pulls. So my little world on the wheel collapses from a 360 into 1/4 of that. Okay, we just have that little slice right here, that little 90-degree slice. That slice is like a direct line from my navel to my knee. The point of it is that epicenter right there, the point in the middle. This means that when I'm using my fingers, I'm only working in this little section here. Okay, the reason for that is if I'm working over here, the clay is coming towards me, it's going to catch on my fingers. So my first pull, what I do, and that's a pull is to pull the wall up, I start right at the base, and I'm basically making like a little lobster hand. But I'm bracing, I'm always going to have my elbow braced here. So this is my lobster hand. The walls are supported on the inside with the inside fingers. They're supported on the outside with the outside fingers. And my sponge, half loaded with water, is going to be the roof. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to pinch in slightly and bring up like this.
Are you pressing down at all?
No. I'm controlling down from the roof portion, but it needs to be pulled up. So that's my first pull. It gives me a little bit of height. Then I slow my wheel down a little bit. And now my pulls become different because I'm very soon not going to be able to fit my hand in like this. It's going to get taller. It doesn't matter what style you do your pull in. You can do pointer, middle, both and both. You could do knuckle. What matters is that your hands match each other, that you don't have like one here and one here, and that they're working as a team, and that that you're moving up at a consistent pace. You don't want to rush, you don't want to dawdle. You want to match the speed of the wheel. It's sort of like you're going in one revolution as a record is turning. So you're like the needle of a record, and you move up one revolution per turn. So what I'm going to be doing for this pull is I'm going to start at the bottom where it's nice and fat, squeeze in a little bit, just a little, gradually, just like we do the slab roller, gradually. Squeeze a little bit, maintain that distance between my fingers as I move up, and it's going to try to give me chaos. It's going to try to wiggle around and go all nuts. My job is to maintain the discipline of my fingers. I'm going to draw the form that I want in my imagination in the air, and I'm not going to let any of the chaos distract me from that form in my imagination, and the clay is going to have no choice but to do what my imagination tells it to do. So here we go.
So you keep your fingers the same distance all the way up, or do you have to start to lighten up on the pressure?
If you feel a thin spot,
feel
then
like
you
it
lighten
gets
up. But if you're doing your pulls right,
It should be.
it's always consistent. And I don't start and then get consistent as I go up. I start
Yeah, that's
and
the hard
immediately, see how I've got a ridge already?
part. Yeah.
That's what you should be doing, because otherwise you get a fat bottom
Yeah.
because you're starting to push as you're moving. So it goes, what you want to do is push, then move. That's how you get a clean
I
line.
always find it's wider at the bottom naturally anyway than it is at the top right now,
That,
correct?
yeah, and that's why you have to change that. So see where I start my distance, my pull, and then I carry it up. One spin per revolution. I get almost to the top, pause, release, and then just reach through the lip. Yeah, that's how you avoid getting the fatness in the bottom, because
That's the
instead of
part
getting
that-
it gradually, and you're gonna at first, and I can refix the bottom again, you're gonna at first do it too much or not enough, and you'll either have chunky pots, or you'll have a pot that just rips apart because you'll do too much at the bottom. But, oh, and as for water, you don't have to drown it. Go to one little spot, drip down a little, it'll coat the whole thing. So I keep doing those pulls. I always start right at the bottom, create my little ridge, and carry that ridge up.
You're using your thumb mostly, and the sponge is over your thumb?
I'm not even using a sponge right now. I'm kind of like pinching
all
and
your
using
fingers.
yeah. It doesn't matter what fingers you use. What matters is they're moving and consistent, right? If you get that little lump there and it bothers you, you can scrape it off. You do one more pull. Oops, need a little bit more water. Don't drown it, just give it a sip. I'm going to do one more pull. And I think that was, I lost count. Was that 3 pulls or 4?
I think that was your...
It gave me a
This is
little
your
wiggle.
fourth one, maybe.
Now, if I wanted to, I could leave the throwing lines. If I don't want to, my tool comes into play at the last minute, after it's already the right height, right thickness. And I just take that, it replaces my outside hand.